A Treatise of Human Nature is a foundational work of modern philosophy in which David Hume explores the nature of human understanding, emotions, and behavior. Published in the early 18th century, the book aims to apply the principles of empirical observation and scientific reasoning to the study of human psychology and morality. Hume examines how our ideas, beliefs, and actions arise from sensory experiences and mental habits, challenging traditional notions of reason as the primary driver of human conduct. The treatise covers topics such as perception, causality, the self, and ethics, ultimately arguing that human knowledge is limited by experience and that emotions, rather than pure reason, are central to motivating action. David Hume, 1711 to 1776, was a Scottish philosopher, historian, and economist, widely regarded as one of the most important figures of the Enlightenment and modern Western philosophy. Known for his skeptical approach and rigorous empiricism, Hume challenged established ideas about knowledge, religion, and morality. His writing style combined clarity, wit, and deep insight, influencing fields beyond philosophy, including psychology and economics. Despite initial lack of recognition, Hume's ideas have become central to contemporary thought, shaping debates on human nature, skepticism, and the limits of scientific inquiry. David Hume's A Treatise of Human Nature begins with a bold project: to apply the experimental method of the sciences to the study of human nature itself. He aims to understand how humans acquire knowledge, form ideas, and interpret the world by grounding philosophy in empirical observation and the workings of the mind. Hume's starting point is that all ideas and beliefs come from sensory experience, and he challenges the rationalist tradition that assumes humans possess innate ideas or purely logical ways to know the world. The first book of The Understanding lays the foundation by examining the origin, nature, and limits of human knowledge. Hume begins with a distinction between impressions and ideas. Impressions are the vivid, lively sensations we experience directly, such as seeing a color or feeling pain. Ideas are the faint copies of these impressions in our minds, memories, imaginations, or reflections. Hume argues that all ideas derive from impressions. There are no innate ideas. Rather, the mind operates by organizing and manipulating these copies. Hume then explores how ideas relate to one another through principles like resemblance, contiguity, nearness in time or space, and cause and effect. These associations form the basis of thought and reasoning. Of particular interest to Hume is causality, the idea that one event causes another. He famously argues that causality is not something we can perceive directly, but is a habit of mind formed by observing constant conjunctions, where one event regularly follows another. Our belief in cause and effect is thus a product of experience and custom, not rational proof. Another critical concept is the problem of induction. Hume points out that just because something has always happened in the past, like the sun rising every day, we cannot logically guarantee it will happen in the future. Our assumption that the future will resemble the past is based on habit, not reason. This skeptical insight challenges the certainty of scientific knowledge and calls attention to the limits of human understanding. Hume also investigates the nature of ideas about the self. He famously denies the existence of a permanent, unchanging self or soul. Instead, he suggests the mind as a bundle of perceptions in constant flux. There is no self that exists independently of these changing impressions and ideas. This radical view undermines traditional metaphysical assumptions and influences later philosophy and psychology. Memory, imagination, and belief are discussed as different mental faculties that contribute to how humans process information and form knowledge. Hume notes that belief is stronger than mere imagination. It is a lively idea related closely to present impressions. Our confidence in beliefs, even when they are not certain, arises from this vividness. Towards the end of Book 1, Hume considers the operations of the understanding, such as how we reason about relations of ideas, mathematics and logic, versus matters of fact, empirical knowledge. In the second book of a Treatise of Human Nature, David Hume shifts focus from reason and understanding to the passions, our emotions and feelings, and their role in human psychology and behavior. He challenges the enlightened ideal that reason alone governs human conduct, arguing instead that passions are the primary drivers of action. Hume begins by distinguishing between direct and indirect passions. Direct passions arise immediately from pleasure or pain, such as desire, aversion, joy, grief, hope, and fear. Indirect passions are more complex emotions like pride, humility, love, hatred, envy, and compassion, which arise from reflections on oneself or others in relation to pleasure and pain. A central claim is that reason alone cannot motivate action. It is the slave of the passions. Reason helps discover facts and relations, but it cannot create the motivation to act. Instead, passions provide the energy or impulse to pursue goals or avoid harm. This means moral decisions and human behavior are grounded more in feelings than in detached, rational deliberation. Hume explores how passions influence human perception and thought. He explains that emotions can amplify or diminish our beliefs about the world. For instance, fear can heighten our sense of danger, while hope can make us expect positive outcomes. This dynamic interplay between passion and understanding means that human judgment is always affected by emotional states. The book discusses sympathy as a key mechanism in human social life. Sympathy allows us to feel the emotions of others, which leads to moral sentiments and social cohesion. According to Hume, this shared emotional experience is the foundation for many social virtues and for moral judgment. Hume also analyzes the roles of pride and humility. Pride arises when we see ourselves as the cause of some good, while humility is connected to perceiving ourselves as lacking or inferior. These passions contribute to self-esteem and social behavior, shaping how individuals present themselves and relate to others. Love and hatred are examined in their complexity and social significance. Hume explains that love is not just a direct passion, but is deeply linked to our sense of identity and social bonds. Hatred, conversely, often results from perceived threats to ourselves or our communities. The second book further explores the influence of habit and custom on passions. Just as we form habits of thought, we also develop habitual emotional responses to repeated experiences. This habituation means that passions can become stable parts of our character, influencing long-term behavior patterns. Importantly, Hume's account highlights the limits of human freedom. While passions motivate action, they also can lead to irrationality or excessive behavior. Understanding our passions, then, is crucial for self-control and moral improvement. Towards the end of the book, Hume considers how passions relate to reason in moral judgments. He argues that moral approval or disapproval arises not from reason, but from emotional responses rooted in sympathy. Morality is thus grounded in human feelings rather than abstract rational principles. In the third book of a treatise of human nature, David Hume turns his attention to morality, continuing his empirical investigation into human nature by analyzing the origins, nature, and foundations of moral judgments. He seeks to understand how humans distinguish right from wrong and what motivates moral behavior. Hume begins by challenging the rationalist tradition that grounds morality in reason or divine command. Instead, he argues that moral distinctions arise from sentiment specifically, feelings of approval, virtue, or disapproval, vice. Moral judgments are expressions of emotional responses rather than conclusions drawn from logical deduction. This view situates morality within human psychology and social experience. Central to Hume's moral theory is the role of sympathy. He explains that through sympathy, people can share and respond to the feelings of others, fostering social harmony and cooperative behavior. Sympathy forms the basis of moral approbation, as we approve qualities and actions that promote happiness and social welfare, and disapprove those that cause harm or discord. Hume divides virtues into two categories: natural virtues and artificial virtues. Natural virtues arise from human nature itself, such as benevolence, generosity, and kindness, which are universally admired, because they benefit society and align with innate human feelings. Artificial virtues, by contrast, depend on social conventions, laws, or agreements, such as justice, fidelity to promises, and property rights. These arise because of their utility in maintaining social order, even though they are not naturally pleasing. Justice, a key artificial virtue, is not natural but essential for social life. Hume explains that concepts like property and promise-keeping are human inventions necessary for peace and cooperation. People learn to value justice because of the practical benefits it brings, and this value becomes ingrained through habit and social approval. Hume discusses moral motivation, emphasizing that actions are morally good when they are motivated by genuine concern for others' well-being. Actions driven solely by self-interest or external reward lack true moral worth. This distinguishes Hume's ethics from egoistic or utilitarian frameworks, highlighting the importance of feeling and intention behind behavior. He also explores the relationship between virtue and utility. While some virtues are appreciated because of their usefulness, Hume warns against reducing morality to mere calculation. True virtue combines usefulness with genuine emotional approval. It is not enough for an action to be beneficial. It must resonate with human sentiment to be truly virtuous. Hume critically examines the idea of a moral self that is responsible for actions. Since the self is a bundle of perceptions without a fixed essence, as he argued in Book 1, moral responsibility must be understood in terms of habitual patterns of feeling and behavior rather than metaphysical entities. The book also addresses moral disagreement and cultural diversity. Hume acknowledges that moral sentiments can vary between individuals and societies. But he maintains that many virtues are universally recognized because of shared human nature. Differences often arise from local customs or misunderstandings of utility. Towards the end, Hume touches on the role of education and cultivation in moral development. Since moral sentiments are partly shaped by experience and social environment, education can foster virtues by influencing feelings and habits. This places moral improvement within reach of individuals and societies through deliberate effort. Book 3 concludes by framing morality as a natural and social phenomenon deeply rooted in human feeling and practical concerns. Hume's sentimentalist ethics challenged the dominant rationalist and religious moral theories of his time and laid important groundwork for later moral philosophy, psychology, and social theory. In this final part, we bring together the major themes and philosophical contributions of David Hume's A Treatise of Human Nature and reflect on its enduring significance. Hume's treatise is fundamentally an empirical investigation into human nature. He applies the experimental method observation, analysis, and skepticism to the workings of the human mind, emotions, and moral judgments. Rejecting metaphysical speculation and dogma, Hume insists that all knowledge arises from experience and the interplay of impressions and ideas. This grounding in empiricism sets him apart from rationalists who claim innate ideas or pure reason can reveal ultimate truths. One of Hume's most influential ideas is the distinction between impressions, immediate sensory experiences, and ideas, fainter copies of impressions. This foundation informs his entire philosophy. By showing that complex ideas derive from simpler impressions, Hume challenges the notion of innate knowledge and underscores the limits of human understanding. His skeptical analysis of causation and induction reveals that our belief in cause and effect is not logically certain, but arises from habit and custom. This insight creates a deep epistemological challenge. Scientific knowledge, while practical and reliable, cannot be justified by reason alone. Instead, it depends on psychological tendencies. Hume's problem of induction remains a cornerstone of philosophy of science debates today. Hume's theory of the self as a bundle of perceptions with no underlying substance destabilizes traditional views of personal identity. By denying a permanent self, he influences later existential and psychological thought, questioning the nature of consciousness and identity. The treatise also revolutionizes understanding of human motivation. Hume insists that passions, not reason, are the engines of action. Reason is instrumental, but cannot on its own motivate us to act. This view anticipates modern psychology's emphasis on emotion and challenges overly rationalistic conceptions of human behavior. Morality for Hume is rooted in sentiment and social feeling, especially sympathy. He argues that moral judgments express emotional responses, not objective facts or divine commands. This sentimentalist ethics places humans and their feelings at the center of moral philosophy, anticipating developments in ethical theory that emphasize empathy and social context. Hume's distinctions between natural and artificial virtues highlight the social construction of many moral norms and the practical role of conventions like justice. His pragmatic account of morality as both feeling-based and utility-aware bridges individual psychology and social order. Throughout the treatise, Hume maintains a tone of cautious skepticism balanced with practical wisdom. He does not reject knowledge but recognizes its limits and the complexity of human nature. His emphasis on habit, custom, and the limits of reason serves as a corrective to dogmatism and provides a framework for understanding human behavior that remains relevant. Philosophically, Hume's work laid the foundation for later empiricism, skepticism, and naturalism. His influence can be seen in the works of Immanuel Kant, who credited Hume with awakening him from dogmatic slumber, as well as in modern cognitive science and moral psychology. In sum, a treatise of human nature is a monumental attempt to understand humans as natural beings, driven by experience and emotion and social connection, while exposing the limits of our knowledge and the central role of feeling in our moral lives. It remains a vital text for anyone seeking a rigorous, insightful account of human nature and the foundations of knowledge, ethics, and psychology. Thanks for joining me in exploring David Hume's A Treatise of Human Nature, a groundbreaking journey into the workings of the mind, emotions, and morality. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of philosophy's most influential works, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future book summaries that expand your understanding and spark your curiosity.